Hello everyone, I am Amit Shah, studying PGDM from MYRA School of Business, Mysore. Today we have with us Dr. David Patient, who is the Senior Associate Dean for Research in Católica Lisbon School of Business and Economics, who is also the Director of Católica Lisbon Research Unit in Business and Economics and Academic Director of the Masters in Psychology in Business and Economics. And he is also the Academic Director of the Executive Master in Management with a specialization in Leadership with Development. Good morning, sir. We welcome you in MYRA.
Good morning. Thank you.
So, I have some questions for you regarding you are visiting MYRA from the inception of MYRA. So it has been 5 years now. So as you are coming to MYRA since its inception, have you observed any kind of transformation in MYRA?
Okay. I should first say that my annual trip to MYRA the last 5 years is a part of the year that I enjoy very much. It's a different environment for me. It's extremely colorful. I find the interaction with and the feedback from the students and also from the staff to be really enriching. So it's really a pleasure to come here and teach, even if it's only for a short, intense period. Of course, there have been some changes in the 5 years that I've been coming here. Although it was really exciting to see the big plans that MYRA had right from its inception 5 years ago. It's also interesting coming back each year to see more and more of these coming into place. I would mention a couple of things. I've really seen a culture develop at MYRA, especially through some of the additional events and activities. MYRA is a place where people seem to celebrate festivals, where in addition to working hard academically, there's other events that are not only fun, but also important to showcase other abilities. I've seen MYRA's international connections and programs grow, and also each time that I come back to Mysore, I see that there are more what I would call resident faculty here. It's great that students at MYRA still have the opportunity to take classes with a lot of people who come from universities abroad, mostly very good universities from Europe, from the United States. But it's also really important that there are faculty here who can interact with the students and guide them over longer periods of time. And I know from meeting people at lunch and from bumping into people in the halls that there's now really a substantial group. There are people who are professors in organizational behavior, in marketing, in accounting, in finance, in other areas, for whom MYRA is their full-time home. And they're here to support the students full-time, including in the projects that are part of your program. And that's really a great development.
Okay, sir. So before moving to the next question, I would like to congratulate you on successfully completing 12 years in Católica Lisbon.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir. So as I have mentioned right now, you are teaching in Católica Lisbon for 12 years right now. So have you seen any kind of differences or similarities between the students of Católica and MYRA?
Okay. First, I should say that it's true. I've been teaching at Católica for 12 years. But during that time, in fact, our students at Católica changed a great deal. When I first joined the school, the population was mostly Portuguese. And in most of the programs I teach now, maybe half of the students are international. With a lot of German students and a lot of Italian students and in fact, interestingly, quite a few Indian students. But I would say that the students I teach at MYRA, they have several things in common with our students at Católica. Okay. It's an ambitious group. Okay, so I know that the people who come to MYRA, as the people who come to Católica, which is a private school, are making a big investment. And they're making a big investment to go to a school that is reasonably small, but that can give them the attention and the nurturing that is good for their careers. Okay, so I would say that's the same. But of course, it's more expensive than the public universities, and so that shows a lot of commitment and dedication by students and also by their families. The way that I teach is as you know, is based a lot on cases and also a lot on in-class exercises. And in order for this to work, the students have to really invest. Okay, it's more than just coming to class and taking notes and doing exams. People need to prepare a case, and when we have exercises in class and discussions, students really need to engage. And my experience at MYRA has been very positive in that regard. Okay, so in that respect, I would say it's very much the same as my students at Catholica. That the students do their part, they prepare, they show up, they work in class, and they try and take the most out of the experience. Of course, there are some differences. I find the students here at MYRA, and maybe it's typical of Indian students, to be a little bit more shy at first. Okay, it takes a couple of days for people to warm up. Whereas the classes I teach in Lisbon, which have a lot of German students, right from the very first day, people are very assertive in speaking up. Whereas here, I still need to maybe work a little bit harder to create an environment and an atmosphere where people feel comfortable. But I can tell you by the end of the course that people feel comfortable and are really participating.
So, apart from being in Catholic and coming to MYRA, you were the marketing representative for IBM Canada also. So, do you find any kind of differences between the cultures in the Indian organizations and the Western or other global organizations?
It's been a lot of years since I worked for IBM Canada. But it's true. It was an environment that where the organization had a very strong culture. Okay, so working somewhere like IBM, certainly in the 1990s, it made you very aware of culture. Okay, and these days I'm interested in national culture. I haven't worked closely with a lot of Indian organizations. Okay, whereas for example in Portugal in particular and in Canada also, I've had a lot more experience. But I do come into contact not only with the students at MYRA, but with other executives who attend talks that I sometimes give when I'm at MYRA. My impression is that the culture is a little bit different here, although it shares some things with Portugal. The culture here is still quite hierarchical, okay, and so people seem to attach a lot of importance to positions and to status within the organization. From what I can see, when people first enter the workforce, they're very respectful, and they're probably a little bit reluctant to challenge anything that's coming from a more experienced person. And so this is a little different than I'm used to. Whereas in European culture, we do have hierarchy, okay, especially in countries like Portugal, but it's not quite as strong. Okay. I think also in Europe, there's probably more conscious discussion of work-life balance. Okay, people want to work, they want to be successful, but also they want to be able to balance their professional life with their personal life. From what I can see in India, in order to get ahead, perhaps more than in other places, you may need to really sacrifice your personal life. Okay, so there seem to be environments in the high-tech industry, which is what I've come into most contact with here. There may be environments in which employees are, I would have to say, pressured into working really, really a lot of hours. Okay. Not only is this potentially at the expense of their personal life, but my own feeling more and more is that if you have people work so hard, it can actually undermine, some of their motivation and creativity and drive to get ahead. So I think this is something that should maybe be tempered or at least looked at. It might be different for the younger generation, for the millennials in India. Let's see.
Okay, sir. So, sir, you have done your law degree from the University College London and your MBA and PhD from the Sanders School of Business at the University of British Columbia.
Yeah.
So, sir, how is your education and your work experiences helping in delivering the course which you are teaching over at MYRA, that is the Power and Influence?
I taught a course on organizational behavior here,
yes,
I guess for about 4 years. Okay, and I enjoy teaching it. But in fact, what I enjoy teaching most at the moment is the course and the topics that I'm now offering at MYRA, which is power and influence. And I think it reflects, a little bit my experience. I was in marketing at IBM, which was essentially a sales position, and I think that experience really marked me. I really feel that to get ahead in most professional domains, in most areas of life, you really need to know how to sell. You really need to know how to persuade and influence people. And that has certainly applied, to my career in business, but also I would say, to my career as a researcher. We always need to sell our research in order to get funding. Okay, we need to position our research in a way that's attractive for readers and in a way that's going to get accepted into the top journals. So, even though my experience as a salesperson is more than 20 years ago, I think that experience made me realize how important some of the topics are that we do in the Power and Influence class, in particular persuasion. Okay, I think the other thing that is relevant about my experience and that really makes me want to teach the course is the responsibilities that I've had in the last few years. So I've gone from being a researcher and a teacher who works mostly independently to being in administrative positions at Católica Lisbon. And so, for example, I was the academic director of the MSc programs and then of the MBA programs. And now I'm in charge of research. The challenges, the challenges have been completely different. Instead of just being responsible for my own work, or mostly for my own work, what I spend a lot of my time trying to do now is to bring changes into the organization. And this requires, much more strategic thinking in terms of how we interact with people, in terms of how, we build a supportive network, in terms of how we manage our relationships. And these are topics that I teach in the course and that I enjoy teaching, partly because I think I've realized the last 4 or 5 years, just how important they are. Okay. I've noticed this, or at least, it's clicked for me relatively late in my career. But I want to share some of that, for people who are at an earlier stage in their career, so that they can use it more immediately. I'm also a father. I have 2 children, and a lot of what you do when you have children is to try and direct them and influence them and motivate them. And even though that sounds like a completely different domain, it's also an area which has taught me, that we really should have a lot of different ways of trying to influence people. So if one thing doesn't work, we can try another thing, with the goal always being, the long term. To do things in a way that is good in the long term for whatever our goals are, and also good in the long term, for the relationships that we depend on in the workplace.
Okay, sir. So, as you mentioned that you are used to teach organizational behavior in MYRA, and now you're teaching power and influence.
Yeah.
So, as you know that most of the students in MYRA, they're freshers right now. So, what are the key takeaways that they can have from this course, Power and Influence or Organizational Behavior, as they enter the corporate life? Sir?
Okay. You know, I'll address directly some of the takeaways, you know, that relate to the Power and Influence course. You know, an important thing for students to realize is that legitimate power, okay, hierarchical power, is not the only source of power, and especially at the beginning of your career, it's probably not the most important source of power. And so students need to realize that they have a lot more power than they think, okay? But it just has to be developed in other areas, okay? Things like expertise and good relationships with people. I think another key point is for students to realize that there's always a bit of a tension, and that they need to navigate, you know, a bit of a tension between hard tactics to get things done, okay, and soft tactics, okay, and we refer to these tactics in different ways, push and pull, or warmth and competence, depending on the articles and the research that we're looking at. But the overall point is that both are necessary to get things done in the workplace. Okay? We need to do things that help us develop positive relationships with people, and that help us understand those people and connect with those people. But at the same time, realistically, to get things done and to get ahead, you also need to be aware of some other strategies that are a little bit tougher. Okay, but you should be aware of them, and you can decide whether you want to use them or not, because some of your colleagues, some of your rivals in organizations will do so. Okay. I think, you know, a message that I really try and get across to the students is that, you know, they shouldn't be shy about talking about topics like power and influence. It's not always something that we feel comfortable about. You know, there's still a belief that so long as we do a good job, that should be fine, and that will be automatically recognized and rewarded, and there'll be other opportunities. And I try and tell people that, of course, you need to do a good job. Okay, that's really important, but it's not enough. The technical skills are not enough to get you ahead. You also need to know, you know, how to manage people, okay, including in tough situations.
So that would be it, sir. Thank you so much for giving your precious time to us. I hope that you will again come back to MYRA and teach us and give us your experience, share your experience with all the students in MYRA.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, and it's been a great trip, and I look forward to coming to Mysore again before very long.
It was our pleasure, sir, to have you here and get your insights and get the experience from you, sir, also.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.